All right, going to go over how to tighten up a wheel, single speed, one chain. This has 2 bolts, so a solid through axle, not a quick release. So not only got to pull the wheel back to create tension on the chain, now we got to center the wheel within the frame. We can't have it left or right because it will hit the frame down here at the chain stay or up here at the seat stay. So right now I'm going to go ahead and loosen. So what you can use as a guide, your eyeballs can look here in this area where the chainstay is and the wheel. Either you're getting eyeball in there, or maybe you get a fingertip in there, and then you could measure the other side too. Does my fingertip fit? Just to gauge, a rough gauge on alignment. And you can come up to the top too, up here at the seat stay, do a visual, or put your finger on the side there, on both sides. Those things are going to help you get alignment. So what I'm going to do, have your tool ready. So typically 15mm tool to get these sockets, get those nuts going. So we're going to pull this wheel back. Of course, you already have your chain engaged on your rear and your front gearing, and then here I can kind of steer the wheel left or right as well. So either using your left or right hand, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to come in and use these fingers to grab the wheel, brace my thumb on the frame, come right between the chain. So then here I'm going to pull on that wheel. I can keep tension on that chain. Notice that the chain's tight compared to loose. So I can pull here. I can use my left hand too to also pull back on the wheel. But now I can use my right hand with my fingers and steer the wheel left or right. So I can kind of, now my eyeballs can sight down the middle and I can see what's going on at the chainstay near the tire. So what I want to do is split the difference, have equal spacing on both sides. All right, so now what I'm trying to do, once we got that tension, pull that tension. Say we put the wheel in the center of the frame. 50% we split the tire, 50% on one side, 50% on the other, but say I want to go a little more on the left side, so then we have a smaller spacing, and we're talking maybe like, say we do 60-40, so maybe we have a 40% gap on the left side, just slightly, but we're going to get that back. So at this point you can go ahead and tighten up your bolt on the left side, but you're going to do it very softly. Do it just enough, more than what your fingers could do, but you don't have to wrench down at this point because we still want the wheel to shift on step 2. So we're going to tighten up this left one. So if you're sitting on the bike, this is your left bolt. So I'm going to go very, very light, just feeling some little bit of light resistance there, and then I'm just going to go just snug, and I'm just using my thumb on this tool, and that should be enough to hold it. Then we can go over to this side over here. So let's say the wheel is a little more favored to the left side. Now I can use my fingers either to push or pull the wheel towards me. And when that happens, the chain is actually going to gain tension. So if the chain has a little bit of looseness to it, if I push or pull towards me, it gets tight. So that's going to finish your tightening, putting tension on this chain. And now we can kind of monitor how tight we want this, right? We don't want it too tight, not too loose. So right now we just have that left one tight. This one is still loose. This bolt's finger loose, not even touching. So I'm going to use this finger. I'm going to push that direction. This chain should get loose and drop just like that. When I release, boom, it gets tight. So that means when I do push more this way towards me, this chain's going to get a little tighter. So we can get, and here we're just kind of guesstimating, and then you can always go back and forth. You may get it right the first time, you may have to go back 2 times, 3 times. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and apply tension with my fingers, pushing against on the side of this tire towards me. Create that tension here. I'm going to hold it, and finger strength is all you need. Let's get all that looseness out of there. And then I'm going to go ahead and snug this guy up. Boom. So we should relatively be done. We didn't put a final tightness on these bolts yet, but right now we're still in the adjustment stage. So now we can test with these single speeds. We're going to check in 4 spots for tightness or looseness. There's always going to be a tight spot and a little bit of a looser spot. So we're just trying to find the happy medium of both. So right now I'm in the 3 o'clock. That's 1 position, 2, 3, 4. So right here, little jiggle up and down. So that movement right there, I mean, what's that distance? What's the norm? What are we supposed to move? 1/4 of an inch or so? But something like that. You could put your device up here, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, something like that. So that's where we are in this first section here. I'm going to go down in the down position, check it again. Relatively the same, maybe slightly more movement. Let's check this 3rd position in the 9 o'clock. Got a little bit tighter. Maybe looking the same on video, but I can feel this slightly tighter, but still moving pretty good. So far, not too tight at all, not too loose. Last position here. So it's overall, it's staying relatively good. Maybe one area, you might find that one area on your bike is super loose. You can check that, see if you can peel the chain off of the gearing. If you can do that, definitely too tight. So you want to find that, maybe you find that loosest spot and you use that area. What may happen though is, now we need to make sure it's not too tight. So same thing, you know it's too tight when you can't move this, when it barely wants to budge. And then you're also, if it's that tight, when you go to pedal, it's going to be making a bunch of extra noises, a bunch of creaks and things like that. And it's just letting you know that the chain is sitting too tight on these gearings here, and you got some extra noise going on at some point. That means we're getting a little more stress, maybe a little more fatigue. Overall, in the long run, not a great thing. And that means we're just creating more friction, more heat, and things like that. So try and find that happy medium area. So at this point, you can go back and tighten up your nuts. So once we're feeling pretty good there, you can always get your visuals down here at your chainstay. Relatively even gap on this side, pretty even on this side. If you're a little bit closer to one side or the other, you might be okay. There's always a little bit of wiggle room. You just don't want it so close though. When you go to ride, you start putting that pedal pressure, the frame may want to do a flex, and at a certain point, when it flexes, you may get a tire rub, and you may not even know it, you may not hear it, or the only time you may see it is when this wheel comes out and you're looking inside here, you're like, oh, there's some paint gone. It looks like polished material there. It will start to eat away at your metal and not really harm the rubber of your tire, strangely enough. So at this point, torque-wise, I'm always guesstimating. I'm probably doing something between, could be 25, 35 Newton meters, but I think if you're probably maybe confident at this point. Doesn't have to be crazy tight. Everyone has a different strength. You just want it tight enough that this isn't going to move. With these fixies, this style dropout, the dropout is horizontal, meaning the wheel can slide this way, opposed to the wheels coming in and out this direction. So if we're not tight enough, then it may want to, as you're pedaling, it's going to want to pull the wheel inward this way, and then your chain gets loose, and at that point you might lose your chain.